to some degree has become synonymous with books. One author after another wants to have a go at the former leader of the country, but one author is on a different level. He has written a book called Dear Jacob, which likens the life and times of former President Jacob Zuma with that of Jacob the shepherd from the Bible. The author SABELO Soweto Mandlanzi is here in studio to tell us all about his great works. A very good morning to you, SABELO. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Greetings and greetings to the viewers at home.
Thank you so much. Look, let's start with this. What inspired you to write?
Look, I started writing at a very early age. Even before I wrote about this book, President Jacob Zuma, I had a lot of things that I had written. Growing up at primary school, I used to write love letters to girls. But coming to this book, I'm a simple guy who reads the Bible, just wanting to see how we can make it practical and more relevant to the times we live in. So as I continued to read the story of Jacob from Genesis chapter 25, something seems to puzzle me because I watch the news now and again. There's something about this other Jacob that seems to be similar about the other Jacob in the Bible. And that was just pure inspiration because I then wanted to look, what are the similarities in the two?
So tell us more about the book. What is contained within this book, Dear Jacob?
Look, how I started about writing the book was I wanted first to understand what's the meaning of Jacob, because it was obviously going to be a comparison between the two people. You'd know that when a parent, either be a mother or a father, gets a child, they'll give them a suitable name, which means any name has a meaning in it. So what I wanted to find out was what's the meaning in the name Jacob? Well, there are many meanings. One of them is Jacob means a trickster. But the more important thing
a trickster.
Yes, the name Jacob itself just means a trickster.
Okay.
But the more powerful meaning in life is that there are two things that are likely to happen with any name. It's either I follow the name that my parents gave me, or the name that my parents gave me follows me. So I wanted to know, did President Jacob Zuma follow the name Jacob, or did the name Jacob follow President Jacob Zuma?
And what did you find out?
Well, that's in the book. But I personally think that the name has followed the president because he has the name. So the person in the name of Jacob followed him in his life. So the comparison is around there, even though it's not just about him alone. There are other comparisons that are about other politicians, which obviously feature into the book to substantiate my facts on the similarities.
I was reading some of the abstracts and you even draw in Cyril and Malema there, but we're not going to get into that. But a lot of people might accuse you of being controversial or accuse you of elevating the former president to a status of a demigod. What is your response to that?
Quite impossible. Some people are just dramatic from what I think. This is the fact. In the Bible, God used normal human beings. They had flaws, errors, mistakes, whatsoever you call it. So it's impossible that if we now go back and look at those people, we start wanting to think they are semi-gods. They are they're similar to us. If you look at David, whosoever, I can still write a book about any other person that was in the Bible. Luckily, this time it was Jacob. Jacob. Now, if we also want to look at the book without President Jacob Zuma, we look at Jacob as a human being. Yeah. He made mistakes. If you look at Jacob in the Bible, he had many wives. For example, if you look at Jacob wanting to take over leadership for his brother, you'd remember that in the beginning, he had a twin by the name of Esau, and he was actually trying to come out first, but he couldn't. Young as he was, he tried to hold his brother's heel, wanting to come at the same time Esau was coming. But he couldn't. Now, if you look at that content, you then look at President Jacob Zuma having his political twin by the name of Thabo Mbeki in 2008 in Mangaung. If you look at Jacob in the Bible, that womb is a personification of the South African womb for the elections of a president. So the Mangaung 2008-2009 were a reflection of what happened in the Bible. President Jacob Zuma wanting to be the president just like Jacob wanted to come out. You know what I mean? But it looked impossible. And after that, obviously, President Jacob Zuma wins the elections. So there's further much more than just praising President Jacob Zuma. Of course, God has chosen him. He had chosen him for the mission that he had to accomplish. The government of South Africa is chosen, not in fact of South Africa. The government everywhere is approved by God. So whoever governs, there is an approval by God. So in this case, it is clear that God had chosen President Jacob Zuma to rule the country for whatever the period.
You know, Sabelo, we've seen many authors, journalists, artists, you know, taking a dip, for lack of a better word, at President Jacob Zuma. And it was quite the contrary. So you come out as being the lone person, the lone cheerleader for President Jacob Zuma. Let's look at of what you've written in the book now, and looking at how things have turned out with his recall. Do you still see that comparison in the Bible going out as exactly as stated in the Bible, and what happened in South Africa?
What's nice with the Bible is that whatever it says, it doesn't change. So I think for me, that was my first area of contentment, that whatever I'm going to be saying is not going to change. I wrote this book 6 years ago, not knowing what was going to happen. And I used the word projections, you know, which now I can call it prophecy fulfilled. Let's, a simple example, if you want to look at it, Jacob grows old, he's about to leave the seat of leadership. He has many sons. Obviously, he needs to nominate who the next son would be. There were favorite sons like Reuben, who was the first. If we get time, we'll talk about that quickly also. But there was another son by the name of Joseph. Now, someone would say then, why do you liken Cyril Ramaphosa to Joseph if the name is not the same? But people must understand, we are looking at the people in the names. We're not looking only in the names.
All right.
So what happens is that Joseph gets to have some kind of conflict with his brothers. They throw him into the pit. They argue, should we kill him or not kill him? Some say, no, let's not kill him. Some enemies of theirs passing buys, they actually buy Joseph.
To rap, yes.
When they buy him, he actually goes to Egypt. Going to Egypt, he becomes rich, and that's where he becomes famous. He comes back, the economy of Israel was bad. So coming back, he becomes a leader. Now, that's how we liken Cyril Ramaphosa, because at the time, he could have been the president. He went into a political pit, came back, he's favored, I'm sorry to say, but more by people that would say they were part into the oppression or who oppressed South Africans. And that is just how we liken Cyril Ramaphosa to Joseph.
Sabelo, it seems like you have a very interesting outlook in terms of how you actually conduct the basis of your content. Maybe just, I see a couple of books here, but we are out of time. But just tell us what actually forms the basis of all your books that you write.
It's scriptural writing and my faith. You know, that's what drives me. And also realizing that I have a mission to accomplish, and that is to inspire young black authors and entrepreneurs.
And what are you doing to inspire other young black authors? Because we hear you guys have a lot of challenges when it comes to things like publishing and so forth.
Look, I've been doing seminars for writers and young authors just to talk about the challenges that they meet.
Face,
you know, I mean, if you look at distribution channels, it's difficult. If you look at big bookshops, it's difficult. So those are some of the things that we sit and talk about just to ensure we help them.
All right. Well, Soweto, you do have the details. I'm sure they can follow you on Twitter, on Instagram, wherever, and get more details. And also, where are your books available? Yeah,
exclusive. And I'm sure they'll be able to get me on the social media.
All right. Well, that was the author of Dear Jacob, amongst other books, Mr. SABELO Soweto Mandlanzi, giving us a real count as to why he wrote the book Dear Jacob. Let's look at other news.